What's up, guys? Welcome to Forensic Friday, where I tell you one true crime case that was solved using forensic science, all while doing, that's right, my makeup. If you love true crime and makeup, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future episodes. Today's video will be featuring the new Colourpop Sandstone palette. So today I'm thinking to create a nice orangey green pumpkin-y kind of Halloween themed makeup look. If you guys would like to see a live swatch and review of the entire palette, head on over to my beauty channel. I will leave a link in the description below. Before we get started, I just want to say, please read the disclaimer. I am in no way a professional makeup artist, beauty guru, or MUA by any means. I'm just the average girl at home like you, playing in makeup and talking about true crime. I mean, what could be better than that? Now, this all takes place in Newport Beach, California on September 13, 2006, when a yacht owner at the Newport Harbor Yacht Club found something floating in the water wrapped in a sheet that for whatever reason he presumed was a dead body, and contacted the authorities immediately. Good thing he did, because that is exactly what it was. Finally, somebody smart enough to contact the authorities right away when they see things like this. I think we're going to conceal a little bit. Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know. When police arrived to the dock, they discovered a female with numerous stab wounds throughout her body and face. There were stab wounds to her neck, there were stab wounds to her torso, to her feet, to her back, to her face. I mean, there were stab wounds everywhere. She had 52 stab wounds. And out of those 52 stab wounds, 2 of them were to the jugular and carotid artery. According to the coroner's report, she would have bled to death and died almost immediately. The victim not only had been stabbed multiple times, but the weapon was still in her body. There was a knife stuck in her eye. Authorities say that they hadn't seen anything like this pretty much ever. Most times the murder weapon isn't left with the body. It's usually like disposed of somewhere else. So authorities thought that this was really strange. So from this, investigators were able to theorize that whoever the assailant was had something personal. They must have really hated her and left in the eyeball like that. You know it had to be personal. I don't know if I would have left the freaking knife behind. That is just like stupid on their part. Wrapped in the bed sheet, police also found another knife, and it had blood on it and some skin cells. The victim had no identification on her, and it was hard to tell how long the body had been in the water. Because of the effects that the water had on her fingers, it obscured them to the point where investigators could not get a positive print from her. About 100 yards away, police also found a cardboard box with some duct tape on it. They believe that it might be connected to the murder, so they decided to collect that and take it into the forensic lab. My forehead is a joke. I don't know why I put that on my forehead. Did I want my forehead to look bigger? During the autopsy, the medical detectives found that the victim had breast implants. And if you guys don't know, breast implants actually have a serial number on them linked to them. So it's pretty much for if the breast implants have like a recall or like a defective on them, that the manufacturers can let the patient know that they need to return the implants, or that there's something wrong with the implants. Using these serial numbers, police were able to track down the manufacturer of the implant. They were manufactured in France, but the operation took place in Oklahoma City. It also told them that the patient now resided in California. The body was that of 52-year-old Barbara Mullex. She lived in Huntington Beach, California at the time. My entire eye is like, bitch, I don't know what you thought you were doing, but you are not a professional, so don't try us again. And I agree with them. So Barbara, who was 56 years old, had a kind of unusual living circumstance. Her and her 17-year-old daughter had just moved to California and was living with her ex-husband, Bruce. Barbara had a slight drinking problem, so she was spending a lot of money on alcohol. And she kind of came onto hard times. They weren't planning to stay long. They just, just until she got back on her feet. I know some of y'all like to smile when y'all do this. I just like, you gotta do your attitude face. And when you do that, the cheekbones be popping, 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 popping. See? Lighting should make this better, hopefully. After forensic scientists performed their initial test on the packing box, investigators started to theorize that the murder may have taken place in Bruce Malonick's apartment, because they track the shipping label all the way back to a commercial store in Huntington Beach where Bruce Malonick bought a TV. So police went to go interview Bruce Malonick and his 17-year-old daughter, Rachel, but they couldn't find them. While investigators were searching Bruce Malonick's apartment, they got a little surprise visit from none other than Bruce Malonick. Malonick's, I think it's Malonick's, not Malonick. Sorry, I mispronounce everything. Malonick's. According to police, he seemed really surprised and amazed that homicide detectives was even in his apartment. So he genuinely seemed like he had no idea what was going on. The medical examiners estimated that Barbara was murdered sometime between late Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Bruce claimed that he left town on Tuesday night for a business trip and was in Fresno, California. Fresno, California is 260 miles away. Police thought it was really suspicious that he was out of town the same night that this entire incident occurred with Barbara. Could be a coincidence, but really, could it? Now, Bruce denied any involvement in Barbara's murder, but he did admit that they had their disagreements. They weren't always, on the same page with things. Now, according to Bruce, they were both at fault for the divorce, but his main issue with Barbara was that she was drinking more and more every single day, and that when she would drink, she would turn into a completely different person. She would get really angry, go in these fits of rage, say like a lot of crazy, ridiculous things that like you should never say to another person. And she would act out and be like a completely different person, and she started to drink more and more and more. So for him, that was like the icing on the cake. He couldn't take it anymore, and that's one of the main reasons he claims they got a divorce in the first place. When investigators searched Bruce's apartment, they found that there was no signs of forced entry. However, Barbara's mattress and box spring were missing. Crime scene technicians sprayed the room with Luco Crystal Violet. Ooh, girl, you shining! Shine bright like a diamond. Luco Crystal Violet is a chemical that turns purple when in the presence of blood. Now it's time to go into our palette. But anyway, back to the story. Forensic scientists could tell by the amount of blood splatter and blood staining in the room that someone had bled a lot. It was clear to them that someone had tried to clean up the blood. In the kitchen, there was a box of latex gloves on the counter, and in the bedroom on the nightstand, there was a blood-stained sponge. Investigators found something else really interesting in the kitchen as well. One of the knives in the kitchen drawer that was missing matched the same knife found in Barbara's eye. Somebody's about to get caught. I just love it when they're about to get caught. I mean, you couldn't really miss this knife. The knives were so unique because they had like a crisscross pineapple cut design on the handle, and so it wasn't like you would forget this knife. You wouldn't. In the bedroom, entire sections of the walls were removed to perform testing on, and they found one very, very apparent print. It was a full handprint. So investigators compared the bloody palm prints to Bruce Mullenix's prints, and the prints did not match. So if the prints were not those of ex-husband Bruce Mullenix, then whose were they? Investigators start to wonder, where was Bruce Mullenix's 17-year-old daughter, Rachel? But Bruce said he had no idea where Rachel was. So early on in the investigation, prior to Bruce Mullenix's arrival, to him coming home, investigators initially thought that his daughter Rachel might have also been harmed and maybe put somewhere as well. So they had no idea, you know, what the conditions of her health was, what was going on. They hadn't heard anything from her. She hadn't answered her cell phone. I mean, investigators called her cell phone directly and she did not answer. So things are looking a little bit weird, just a little bit. I have no idea what I'm doing with this eye look, by the way, you guys. I'm just like going with it. The last time anyone saw her, she was with her boyfriend a day before the murder. They had went to see a movie. Ironically, this movie was titled Lady in the Water. But despite her disappearance, Bruce believed that his daughter had nothing to do with the murder of his wife. Police definitely was not as convinced of Rachel's innocence as Bruce was. Investigators questioned all the neighbors living near Bruce Mullenix's condominium, just trying to find out if anyone heard anything suspicious on that night, or you know, if they saw anything. One of the neighbors actually came forward and said that he was awakened around 3:30 or 4 in the morning by yelling and thumping in the condominium, and that it had gone on for at least 30 to 45 minutes. He actually said he wouldn't be surprised if someone had been murdered over there. And this is before he even knew anyone was murdered. Since Rachel was now missing and something had happened to her mother, investigators thought that she might be in danger as well. Like maybe the murderer kidnapped her or disposed of her body somewhere else. They weren't quite sure, but they were just really concerned about her safety at this point, because I mean, she should have been home around that time. They just weren't sure like what the heck was happening with her. And then Bruce Mullenix told investigators that Rachel had a boyfriend. Now, although Rachel was just 17, she did have a boyfriend and he was 21. I don't know what to say about that. Like, why was that allowed? I have no idea. I don't know. I think that my parents would have killed someone. You know what I mean? Okay, sir. Couldn't find anyone your own age? I mean, I don't know. Seems strange. Seems rather strange. Sorry, his name is actually Ian Allen. Barbara was not happy that her daughter was dating a 21-year-old by any means, and she made it known. Like, she made a really big deal out of it. When 21-year-old Ian Allen came into the picture, Barbara started to get really nervous. Investigators believe she was actually scared that her daughter Rachel would get married to him and move in together and leave her alone. So yeah, this was one of the reasons they believed that Barbara was so tough on, you know, the two of them dating, outside of the fact that her daughter is 17 and he's 21. I mean, that's also really weird. Especially when she found out that Ian was having sex with her daughter, then she got really crazy. When she found out that Ian was having sex with her daughter, she started to threaten him with a statutory rape charge. In fact, she had threatened him on multiple different occasions. Later, when the argument had like cooled down and everyone was like nice with each other again, the argument had subsided, Rachel asked her parents to sign a document stating that they would not threaten Ian with this again, and they signed it. Like, honestly, I don't know. I don't know who's running the household, really. Like, Bruce's thoughts on signing the document was that they would probably stand a better chance at embracing their relationship than, you know, pushing it away. Barbara wasn't having it. I mean, she did sign, even though Barbara signed the document, she still was not having it. She still had issues with them dating the entire time. So I don't know if that document really did anything. Now, detectives found out that a week before Barbara's murder, there was a major confrontation. Rachel hadn't been home at her 1 a.m. curfew time. So Barbara drove down to Ian's house. Sounds about right. Barbara drove down to Ian's house and confronted Ian. She was screaming out at 1:30 a.m. in the morning in front of his house, banging on the doors, screaming at him, causing a scene. And you know, she really embarrassed her daughter Rachel, because her daughter Rachel ended up coming out of the house and going home with her, but she really embarrassed Rachel. She also grounded Rachel and told her she could never see Ian again. Like, they had to stop dating. They could not see each other anymore, which I feel like is kind of fair, because first of all, she signed the document for her not to threaten him, and she was trying to embrace it and be nice, but it really is wrong. But she was trying to be nice about it, and yet Rachel still was breaking the rules and going out and hanging out with this guy, not coming home at her curfew time. Like, come on, dude. Like, if your parents are being that nice to try to work with you on that and, like, you know, accept your relationship, why the fuck would you why would you try to do anything? I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just like different cultures. Her culture is maybe different than my, I don't know. We're all American, but I guess, I don't know. They wouldn't have even come looking for me. My parents would have just locked me out of the house. When I showed up, I just wouldn't have been able to get back in. Like, that would have been it. I would have been on the fucking streets. That's what they would have done. I'm actually like, oh, good on her for going out there and just picking up her daughter. I think that's so nice. Yeah, so Rachel was super embarrassed, and this is what police believe may have been a motive. Ian had never met anyone like this before. She was like very aggressive, and she wasn't afraid of him at all. And I think that he just never met someone like that before that was so confrontational. I don't think he knew how to handle her, like how to actually go about working with her. Rachel made it very clear to Barbara that she had no intentions on ending that relationship. Like, she wasn't just not going to do it. Then investigators found that when Rachel and Barbara lived together in Tampa, that they did have a physical confrontation before. It was exactly 2 years ago, and this confrontation was a little bit scary. Like, it really was scary. Rachel apparently attacked Barbara with a knife, and when the police showed up, Barbara had slashes all over her arms. According to Bruce Mullenix and Rachel, Barbara would say some pretty horrific things to Rachel, things that you just shouldn't say to a person, let alone a mother to a daughter. She would really take it there. Of course, Barbara refused to press charges because it's her daughter. She's not gonna press charges. I mean, so investigators visited Ian's parents, who told them that they hadn't seen him for the last 2 days. They also told police that the family's .38 caliber pistol was missing. Now, since Ian did live at home, the Allen family consented to having their home searched, including their computers. They found that the day of the murder, someone used the Allen's search engine to look up places in Tampa, Florida. Law enforcement nationwide was on the lookout for Ian Allen's truck. When Ian used a card at an ATM machine to get cash in Sulphur, Louisiana, that is when police moved in on them, and both Ethan and Rachel were arrested. When questioned, Rachel told police that she had nothing to do with her mother's murder. and that it was all Ethan. He was the one who had kidnapped her and was holding her hostage after he murdered her mother. She claimed that she tried to push him off, but he knocked her out, so she was unconscious and she didn't see what else happened. When she woke up, she was with Ian and he was holding her hostage against her will. Investigators was about to find out if the forensic evidence agreed with Rachel's story. Once in custody, Ian did confess to the murder of Barbara Mullenix, but he insisted he did everything alone, that Rachel had no part in it. He did it all on his own. However, investigators believe that Rachel had more to do with her mother's murder than they were letting on. According to Ian, he went to Barbara's house that night with the intentions to scare her off and threaten her. He had no intentions in killing her, but then things got out of control really quickly and he didn't know what else to do. And so, yeah, he ended up stabbing her. Meanwhile, in the other room, Rachel was giving Ian up. She was saying that she had nothing to do with her mother's murder or the disposal of her mother's body whatsoever. The last thing she remembered is jumping onto Ian and trying to stop him, and he knocked her out, and then she woke up. She was in a hotel room, that it was all Ian. So she was like, she was giving him up big time. But what Rachel didn't know was that investigators had physical forensic evidence that tied her to her mother's murder. Rachel's blood was found on the yellow sponge in Barbara's bedroom, the same sponge that was used to clean up Barbara's blood. Now, Rachel had claimed she had no involvement in the murder of Barbara, so to find her DNA on the sponge that was used to clean up the actual blood at the murder site, this put her at the crime scene. The cardboard box found floating near Barbara's body had been duct taped. It was duct taped using the same brand of tape found in Ian Allen's truck. Super glue filming on the tape revealed Rachel's fingerprints. On the handle of Ian Allen's .38 caliber pistol, investigators found his DNA as well as Rachel's. So this meant that Rachel was actually holding the gun at some point. Why she didn't use it to get away from her kidnapper if she had the gun in her possession? Girl, make it make sense. Because if I had that gun, I would have been shot his ass. He'd have been dead on the ground, on the floor, like that airplane, if it doesn't stop. And if you struggled with him and he got the gun back from you, why couldn't you just tell police that? Like, it is not adding up. Or should I say it is adding up? Pointing towards you, Rachel. The almost full handprint that they found in blood on Barbara's bedroom wall was Ian's. Forensic evidence showed what investigators theorized from the beginning, that two people were involved in the murder. Though Rachel claimed that she went to bed around 10 p.m. on the night of the murder and that the noise of Ian coming in and attacking her mother woke her up. But as police were going through the text messages, they found that Rachel had actually been sending Ian text messages back and forth all the way up until 1:45 a.m., right before the murder. One message read, "She's taking a Xanax," and then another message read, "She woke up." So as you can see, they're communicating back and forth, letting each other know what she's doing at that time. So kind of conspiring on when the attack will take place. We know that the attack took place at approximately 2 a.m. in the morning. And if she was sending Ian text messages up to 1:45 that her mother had taken a Xanax or that she woke back up, then it does kind of corroborate her involvement in the murder. Prosecutors believe that with Bruce Mullenix away on a business trip, that Rachel and Ian planned the murder of Barbara Mullenix. Investigators found a burned mattress and box spring on railroad tracks near Ian's work. This is where they believe Rachel and Ian burned what they thought was the last piece of evidence that linked them to Barbara's murder. At her trial, Rachel testified in her own defense, saying that she was no killer. But the jury did not believe it, and Rachel Mullenix was convicted of her own mother's murder. In a second trial, Ian Allen was also convicted of Barbara Mullenix's murder. After his trial, Ian admitted to police what the forensic evidence already knew, that Rachel Mullenix was in fact involved in the murder of her mother, Barbara. That they planned it together and they had carried it out together. Thanks to forensic science and some good police work, both Ian and Rachel are serving 25 years to life. What do you guys think about this case and my makeup look? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you like videos like this, check out my last episode. I will leave it linked on the screen right here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any of my future episodes. And I will see you guys next week with another Forensic Friday episode. Bye.